The presenting sponsor of OnEducation is Participate. Lately, teachers from all over have been working together to find new approaches to provide quality remote education. Participate's sister company, Participate Learning, presents United We Teach, a global gathering place for educators to share distance learning resources as we navigate these strange times. For these resources and more, including weekly live chats, visit participate.com/oneducation.
I can't imagine a harder thing to teach online than kindergarten.
Nightmare.
Welcome to OnEducation, part of the On Podcast Media Network. My name is Mike Washburn.
And I'm Glen Irvin. Friends, we have an awesome pod for you today. We will discuss whether EduCelebrities are doing more harm than good, talk about why we should suspend K-12 testing now, and our guest this week is the Chief Product Officer at GoGuardian, Tyler Shaddix.
So before we talk about how much I've been playing Satisfactory, let's talk about what you've been playing. You weren't feeling very well over the weekend, I guess.
No, I was grossly sick. I'm really, really bad. So much so that I, for a second, was like, well, actually, during the whole entire time that I was really, really sick, as I had body aches and massive amounts of fever and, those hot sweats, whatever it might be, super bad headaches. I think associated with that, your brain goes to really bad places. Mm-hmm. And it actually tells you that you have the coronavirus or that it makes you start thinking about like, oh my God, I've infected my whole family. How did this happen? What did I do wrong, et cetera, whatever it might be. It's a really super scary, ugly place. Thank God that in about a 36-hour period, almost not quite 2 days, I was already starting to feel better. This was yesterday, that would be a Sunday. And then by Sunday, midday, sort of mid-afternoon, I was already going out for walks and actually feeling a million times better and being able to eat food, et cetera, and so forth. But I can't imagine those people, so many people who are actually sick and then remain sick for weeks, and they are having those devastating thoughts and all this negativity fills your body. Not only just the toxins and the virus in itself and all of this stuff that's happening there, but your mind starts going to some really dark places. So didn't play any games. I mean, really, yesterday I got back on here and I was trying to actually do some things that I should have been doing to prepare for this week. But happy to be feeling 100% and then ready to look forward for this week.
Well, that's good. I was worried about you a little bit, and I can empathize with the crazy nonsense that gets in your head when the boys were sick there. Mm-hmm. My mind was going just absolutely bonkers. It's bad. It's bad. And so I have tons of empathy and sympathy for folks that are going through it and dealing with it for real. And how hard it must be to think about, how sick you may or may not get, and then also keeping your kids and your wife and your family safe, and trying to, work potentially if you were sick today or yesterday or sick today or tomorrow, trying to still
just
do
grind
your
it out,
job or whatever. It's a crazy, crazy time. Yeah. Want to give some folks. So I've played a bit of Satisfactory. It's how I unwind from all of this nonsense. Is supply chain management, I guess. I'll tell you, the chat on Education Live on Friday was pretty friggin' great.
Yeah, it was fantastic. First time we've ever done it. Did it live. We discussed a few different things. It was great. I thought it was a great panel of people. I think the really interesting component could be, and this is the part that I really would love people to kind of join in, is that part where a live basically a live audience is chiming in either comments and or questions.
Yeah.
Because that helps to drive the conversation and maybe in directions that we didn't know. For example, Phil Poley was providing links to us for specific, articles that we could go in and continue the conversation. I think Mary Messicomer was there talking about different things and encouraging us, so on and so forth. But just in general, it's really interesting, the concept of having that live audience so that you can interact with you guys. Like we can actually interact with you guys and then be able to see where we stand on whatever it might be, or maybe steer the conversation in a direction we didn't actually think of, which happens all the time, which is fantastic. We love that kind of thing. Actually, I think that's why we love the live shows a lot too. When we do the interviews at the different conferences, because you don't exactly know what's going to happen in the interview. Yeah. And most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, that's awesome. It's so good. I mean, some of the stuff that we've discussed with people is like blowing my mind away. I mean, occasionally it's not phenomenal, but it's okay. No matter what, it's going to be decent. But for 99% of the time, you just really don't know what's going to happen. It's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah. It went really well for the first time, like considering we just literally turned on the streaming service and went, okay, let's go. So I'm happy to, we're going to put a little, maybe just a touch more organization into it. It's funny. I didn't, we were thinking about releasing it as a podcast episode, and maybe some people can chime in after listening to this and decide whether, go watch it on YouTube. So it's on our YouTube channel. We'll put the link in the show notes. But I'd love to know if people think this would be interesting enough to be an episode of a podcast. We'd have to do a bit of a disclaimer at the top of it, like, just so you know, this is 6 people talking all at once, sometimes over top of each other. Sure. It's super unscripted and very raw, but interesting. So, it might be something that you'd enjoy listening to, and if you want to listen to it, you should listen to it. But I thought it was pretty good. And so that's on Friday nights at 8:00 Eastern time on the Participate Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/InsideParticipate. So if you're not going anywhere on Friday nights, no parties to go to, not going to the movies. If you decided to stay home instead of going to the basketball game, why don't you come and watch us on Twitch and join in the conversation?
Yeah, join in.
That might be fun. Dr. Will with the tweet.
We love Dr. Will. We've actually brought up Dr. Will. He might be like in, for sure, top 10. He may be in top 5 as far as mentions on this podcast. Just of different things. I think so, because some of the stuff I've disagreed with him, and we've had kind of a cordial back and forth.
Actually, the last time it came up, I think we both disagreed with him.
Yeah, I've said something in disagreeing with him, but I always tell him, hey, I totally respect your opinion and whatever, but I disagree with you and whatever it was.
Yeah.
But in this case, he had a series of tweets, and this specific one was the one that I thought really struck a chord. And basically he writes, what is considered to be sound instructional design for a face-to-face classroom isn't recommended for an online classroom environment. There's actual peer-reviewed research for how to teach online. So please stop pushing. Please stop pushing out practices not meant for an online classroom. So lots of implications there. Now, some people responded with, can you show me the research? Well, there's a lot of research on online instruction. I actually have. It's a little bit too far for me to reach. But when I did my master's degree, and I spent way too much money, I purchased some books that I still have on that shelf over there that I actually read. Several books with lots of peer-reviewed research within those specific books, not just the research of one person, but many researchers about how to effectively teach online. And I was thinking to myself, as I was having some conversations this week with some colleagues, we really need some of those leaders to step to the forefront, those experts in online instruction, kind of give us the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 breakdown of what are the essential components of online instruction.
Maybe so are these like the flipped people, or is this,
no? I'm talking about
not the same either.
100% online instruction. So you would never, you're not able to actually interact with your students in any way. So no, this is like I'm looking over there. Oh yeah, like I have a book called E-Learning, the Science of Instruction of Online Instruction, and it's a thick, very detailed, heavy reading book with lots of research available inside of it. So when Dr. Will's talking about the research, he is correct. There is a lot of research talking specifically about how do you deliver online instruction. Now, education, because we work in education, we always think too, Mike, that we were the first ones to invent things or whatever it might be. Online instruction or e-instruction has been happening in the business world for a long time. And in the business world, in order to train your employees, in order to facilitate best practices and everything else that happens within a business in a very easy and productive way, a lot of businesses took on those models. And I'm talking about everything from businesses to the Mayo Clinic, for example, which delivers the majority of its training online and had before any of this actually ever happened, and probably has been doing it for 10 years. They are true experts of how do you deliver this? How do you hold the employee in that case, in this, it could be the student, accountable to those, to the learning of the thing, but how do you do it in an effective way? And so they've been using lots of different types of techniques, but we think we invent things a lot of times in education, like we're the ones that have come up with the best techniques or whatever it might be. And sometimes we are always lagging behind as far as what's might be happening as far as in the business world.
Especially like K to 12.
Oh, big time. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. So I'm really wondering, as we speak here, who are those K through 12 experts that can really show us kind of like what are the techniques, the ways to be able to do this? First of all, let's talk big picture first. When we give professional development this summer, which we're already talking about, what should we be focusing on with our instructors of how do they like from everything from course design through assessment through delivery of the content? Like maybe not in that order, but you know what I'm talking about as far as everything in between and how online instruction maybe differs than face-to-face. I've had a lot of experiences as far as in both worlds, but I can tell you right now, I have no idea. Like I couldn't give you a 5-point breakdown and then how it differs from that. So his point is super well received by me because I think too often when we talk online instruction, people immediately talk tools. Then they may go ahead and talk relationships. Super important. We talk about that all the time as far as creating those relationships in order to be able to create a learning environment where students want to participate. Okay, so we've got tools and we've got but where's the rest of this? Where's the structure, the course design, and then obviously then the delivery and then the assessment? How do we make all of those things basically come together? So I am for sure reaching out to Twitter universe or wherever it might be for those experts, people who have been doing this and are using research-based methodologies and can really guide us in K through 12 environments. And the ones that I'm really interested about are how can we do this effectively K through 6?
Yeah.
I mean, even lower. Let's go K through 3, pre-K through 3.
Hard, man.
Because I've been listening to some different things. The Department of Education this week is coming out with a bunch of different webinars in Minnesota. And one of them is about this topic specifically about how do you deliver instruction to those little kids? Like what's some best practices? What are some things that we, should be foundations as far as part of doing this? I think a hell of a lot of people want to know. Like, we know the best instruction just can't be a bunch of worksheets. I'm sorry, that can't be.
It's not.
Like, I'm sorry, it can't be. That can't be it. So, what are some things that people are doing that have been working? And I know that there's some people out there that have probably some experience even in the elementary setting doing online instruction for a variety of different reasons. So,
I hate to plug my family members, but so my brother Chris, my younger brother Chris, is the head of learning for Canada's largest courier company. And I've picked his brain in the past about adult learning, about crafting education content for adults. He does what you're talking about, how like all of his learning is delivered online through modules, and constructing online learning experiences is what he does, or at least, part of what he oversees. I'm going to get him to listen to this and see if he can answer, if he thinks he can answer those questions that you asked. It might be interesting. It's not kind of our normal interview, but I think that there's some interesting things to talk about there, because, this is his job, is constructing online learning experiences for adults, but there might be lessons there that are kind of interesting. Yeah. And I'll tell you, and I'm not saying this because she listens to the podcast all the time now, but Cheryl is crushing it with her kindergarten class, and I can't imagine a harder thing to teach online than kindergarten.
Nightmare.
Like, I am so impressed by what she's doing and how because remember, you're not really teaching, like, you're teaching the kids, but you're talking to the parents in a lot of cases, right? Like when you're typing out things in any sort of an LMS, the kids can't read that.
No,
it's not the kids that you're typing to. You're writing to the parents. Like, any parent of a kindergarten kid is an educator right now. Has to be, because there's no other way to do it.
There isn't.
And it's so complicated. I don't think she'd ever want to be on the podcast because she's shy and she doesn't like, talking. Like, she's not tweeting enough. I keep saying, you got to tweet more. You're really doing great work. But I'll tell you, it's hard. And maybe there's a group of kind of kindergarten, K-2, K-3 educators we can get on like a panel and kind of pick their brains for a bit about how to do this and what their shared experiences are, because I think it's a fascinating conversation. Absolutely,
we need that for sure. And we need to be open to a variety of different experiences, even if they come from outside of the education world. Let's just call it the education environment, because all we can do is get better. As far as this whole entire thing is not going to go away. So let's continue to learn.
Yeah. So The Hill, which is typically a politics website that's, pretty hot takey, and I actually read it a decent amount, but there's an editorial, an opinion article posted about doing away with standardized testing next year as well. And I think we touched on this actually in the chat on Friday as well, about that this isn't just about this year. This is about next year and the next year and the next couple of years, right?
Yeah, I thought that it actually 100% supported our position of saying maybe we should just take a pause on the way that we're measuring student growth is a great term that a lot of people like to use. Take a pause on measuring student growth. Take a pause on having students meet specific standards at specific age levels or whenever they actually go into the fall of their fourth grade year, And just like we said on Friday night, maybe testing is it's okay that it's not actually there. For this year, I know we're not going to miss it. So, if you think about, okay, what do we miss, as far as the testing is concerned? Well, a lot of stress on a lot of students and educators pulling students away from their content. That's one of the things you do. What you get out of it, you get a bunch of data that we've already talked about on the podcast many times that is usually highly tainted. It's not written for a majority of people. It's specifically targeting upper class white people. And it's very flawed in the data that it's actually presenting, as far as the thing goes. So eliminating that, I think, is a great hurrah. I love this. That's why I love this post. I wanted to make sure we brought it up because, again, it supported our idea of saying this is not, like you just said, it's not just this year, this little chunk of time, this month and a half or 2 months that it's actually been.
Right.
This could extend beyond this, and we don't know how long. Why focus on those things? Why hyper focus on specific standard A, blah, 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 whatever it might be? Let's figure out, obviously, where our kids are at when the fall comes, not hyper obsess whether or not they're not meeting grade level, blah, blah, blah. Figure out where they're at and then meet them where they're at and make them grow from that point forward. That's what teachers have done all the time, even before standardized tests. We've always done that. Nobody just came into their dang classroom and just went like, we're starting at this point. I don't give a damn where you started at. Just teachers don't do that. We determine where our kids are at, and then we help our students grow from that point forward. It's part of teaching. I'm sorry, but it just is.
It just is. That's right. One of my newest... I've become a fan of Jed Dearybury, I think that's how you say his last name. We ran into each other, in the classic way that Mike Washburn meets anyone fun on Twitter, and that's with an argument. But then we've, I don't know, I'd call him a friend. He's a good...
I thought you actually met him. You were going to tell us a story about...
No, we got into a huge
you gave each other a hug?
We got into a huge argument on Twitter.
Yeah.
But I guess it is a good case study in the fact that, I'm one of those people that can have a debate with someone and still, not I don't unfollow people that disagree with me. And I can have like a conversation where I don't agree with people and still come out the other side. And like, Jed's a good person and a really interesting person, and this is a really interesting thread.
It's a really interesting thread, and I read through it several different times, and I read through all the comments.
Yeah, all the comments, everyone. I went through everything because it actually was very, very. I mean, there's 173 off the main thread. There's way more off of that, as far as all the sub threads off of the conversations. So Jed makes a point, and that's kind of what we brought up as far as the top of the podcast here, that maybe EduCelebrities are doing more harm than good. Okay. And he describes basically his specific situation, and he only calls basically himself out for this kind of situation. He writes several posts in a row where he basically said he was drawn to being a EduCelebrity, and he kind of wanted to be one. Make sure you correct me if I get anything wrong here, Mike, because I'm trying to paraphrase kind of what he's saying. Mm-hmm. And eventually, he got into semi-EduCelebrity club status, I'm going to call it. And the Cool Kids Club.
Yep. And he got a call to go ahead and present at a conference. And a big name celebrity was going to be at this conference. And he was super excited about it. He doesn't name out the person. There's no need to. It doesn't even matter at that point. Unfortunately, his experience when meeting this person was very negative. The person was not who they felt like they should be, I guess, what they proclaimed to be as far as an online personality. Sure. In real life, they were very demeaning to kind of these people around him, his fans, let's call them. He wasn't as smart, and his ideas weren't as novel as things. So he basically lost a lot of luster. Okay, so anyway, as I read all the things, I was like, I think that happens in any time you actually do meet and get to really talk to many celebrities. Do you know what I mean? Because there's this thing that happens when you put someone on a pedestal or whatever you want to call that thing.
Sure.
That kind of elevate them. You also elevate kind of them being, you kind of put them beyond being a human. You know, you kind of put them on this new level of, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And that has happened to me in many occasions, not even just on Twitter or Twitter or whatever it might be. That's happened in relationships. That's happened in all kinds of different situations where you think one thing and then eventually you get to know this person and you gave him this flawless personality
right.
Thing that impossible to achieve kind of the status. And then when you really got to know him, you're like, God, you're gross. Or you're not as cool as I thought you were, whatever it might be. So anyway, he talks about...
I'm never as cool as people think I am.
People come up to you and go, you're just not as cool as I thought you would.
Anyway, I thought you'd be cooler.
when I definitely know what he's actually gone through, but I also think there's some things in it that I disagree with. And the one point that I disagree with is this: he describes one interaction very thoroughly with this specific, whoever this person was, whatever this EduCeleb was, and it went not in a good way, and it tainted him, and it tainted his whole, like, it basically made him feel like crap then too, just for ever having thought that this was a good thing. Mm-hmm. You know, kind of this attainment of EduCelebrity, whatever it might be. But the reason why I think it's like I disagree with it is I've had those interactions with some quote unquote EduCelebs. I've also had some of the most amazing interactions with people who I thought I would hate. And you know who I'm talking about.
I know exactly who you're talking about.
People who I thought
and you wanted
were
to hate
full of
too.
themselves, and I couldn't stand. I hadn't actually ever met them in real life. That's the other part. It's really negative. Everybody now knows exactly what Glen's about here. I was just like, God, I can't stand him. And then when I met, I'm thinking about this one specific person. I'm like, God, I'm so stupid. Immediately within, I want to say 2 minutes, I was like, what was I ever thinking?
You realize he is one of the most likable people.
Several hours into conversation with him, I was like, my God, I could actually be best friends with this person. Now, many years later, I'm like, how the hell could I have ever gotten to that point? And you know what it is? It's because we're flawed as humans. We're like, we see things and we're like, we take some things personally, where it wasn't actually ever meant to freaking offend you. We put people elevate them to things. Well, we shouldn't actually do that. It's not a thing. And I don't know if those people actually feel comfortable with us doing that. Part of their job, let's call EduCelebrity. Let's just see. A lot of quote unquote EduCelebrities' job is basically a grind. We've talked to a lot of people where they bust their butts, and not only do they bust their butt, but their jobs are very, just think about right now, how not secure their funding is, their compensation, anything that's actually happening, and how long will they have to wait before they actually put things into place to be able to make up for all of the monies that they normally would make. And some of them don't. People put like they're making $1 million. No, they're not.
They're not.
There's very few people. I would even say. I mean, I'm thinking about what's the guy that's from England? I mean, I could maybe see someone like him. His name is Sir Ken Robinson.
Yeah.
Sir Ken Robinson. There you go.
Yeah.
I could see someone maybe like Sir Ken Robinson, maybe making, a significant amount of money, or someone that actually started a company and then that company is now rising. I could see something like that where you do end up making a significant amount of. Most of these people are just grind their asses off, travel throughout the country, and
thinking about like Monica Burns, for example, who this is kind of her full-time job. Carl Hooker, who quit recently.
Yes.
A job that, to do, to speak and to write and to work full-time on the road. I've thought a lot about those folks. Not the folks like, I mean, there's folks like Michael Cohen and myself and a bunch of people who have like regular kind of day jobs, right? And supplement their income with their quote unquote side hustles.
Yes.
That's different, I think, a little bit. Those are actually, to be honest, if I was honest, if I had to read between the lines of these tweets, and again, not really knowing or caring who or if Jed was speaking about anyone specifically, I find that the folks that are being the most aggressive with their like view my online learning so and so and so and so and so and so are sometimes the folks that aren't doing this, like that aren't doing this full time, that are just that are growing a side hustle, so to speak, or something like that.
Or they're trying to become this. That's what he was actually.
Matt Miller is someone who does this full time. I think.
Yeah.
So, Alice Keeler.
You just finished describing, minus Alice, but let me just finish describing several people who are, when I met them, in a face-to-face environment. Okay. Michael Cohen, nicest person ever. I mean, not only nice, but like genuine, personable, a great thinker, but not trying to put someone else down. You know what I mean? That kind of person. Oh my God, what an awesome thing. Same thing with Matt Miller. My nicest. I mean, can't even say anything. It's super nice people, genuinely nice people and caring. Yeah. And to think of them though, this person that he was describing, how many plane trips did that person just go from one place to another, whatever it might be, and which spot was this at? And what kind of mood was that guy in? Because, my God, I'm telling you right now.
It's hard.
I'm an up and down person. If I was on a plane all the damn time.
So, Glenn.
If I was on a plane and I had to travel all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you can see my up and down in an ISTE conference. There's a flight at the beginning. Nobody can see me guys doing this, but I'm like flying straight up. That's me with the excitement building up. First days flying high, whatever it might be. By the time that fourth damn day comes around, it's like, okay, time to shut this thing down. I need to go home and sleep. I need to sleep in my own bed and not think about this stuff anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you need to get reset. But when you do this as a job, you're grinding. Yes. From that conference, they told us, they would tell us, hey, in 2 days I have to go home, pack up my stuff again, and then go to this next thing. Now, people may say, well, they challenged this life. Yes, they did. I totally get you, and I totally understand you. But that doesn't mean that they're jerks. Like the people like Monica Burns, super amazing, nice person. And you know what? Nice. I don't know. They didn't need to be. It's not like that people are playing fake with me and you. You know what I mean? We're talking about off the microphones and just in general, just talking and chatting, just a back and forth conversation. I have been blown away by the amount of true kindness towards each other, and being able to like, and really wanting to engage in a conversation. What's his name? Michael, really tall guy, amazing speaker, was on Ellen. Who am I talking about?
Michael Bonner.
Michael Bonner. Okay. So Michael Bonner, I was kind of intimidated. I'm like, oh, we can't go up. That guy's like, he's not just EduCelebrity famous. He's like famous. He's been on like Ellen. I mean, I was super happy to have had him on the podcast.
Yeah.
Kindest, nicest.
Oh, he's awesome.
Person. Spent just a few minutes of his own time just to make sure, and he put everything aside and was focusing on us, really talking to us, thanking us for, whatever we did. We just interviewed him or whatever. And just really kind and nice. And I don't even know if you remember, but there was some lady there that I think was one of his former teachers. Yeah. And I'm like, the genuineness of them coming together.
Keynoted ISTE.
I know. The genuineness of them coming together and like just the kindness, the words between them and being like, hey, you know what? I want that guy to be my kid's teacher. You can see that as educators, whether they're influencers, influence people as far as whatever might be, and they're speaking on a specific topic, or whether or not they actually are still in the classroom. That's why I thought that's why I went through all the entire thread, because I could see myself in that exact same situation and feeling the exact same way. I wouldn't have been able to craft such an awesome series of tweets because this was very, very well written. Mm-hmm. But I can definitely empathize with it. But I also have seen past that point. I've been lucky enough to have been around you.
We've spent a decent amount of time with some of these folks.
And we have, I have a lot of, my mind have shifted on a lot of these things where I thought certain things about certain people, I was freaking wrong. I can admit that. I would tell you back in the hotel room, I'm like, God, I'm a freaking idiot. Why was I ever feeling whatever the hell I was feeling? I was like, that was so stupid. And it's because of my own insecurities. I know that. That's really what it was about. But yeah, I know this has been a long blurb. Sorry, everybody. No, EduCelebrity rant there. But I thought it was really funny? Good. Yeah.
It actually segues into the next bit. A little bit in that I think one of the things that happens with some of these folks is that they're different online than they are in person. So I've talked about this actually with me personally on the podcast before. And I responded to this tweet, this question, are you the same person in real life as you are on Twitter? And I wrote, I don't have the energy not to be. That's what response. I always say. That's what I always say about it, because I decided when I realized that the podcast was blowing up, right? I wanted to make sure more than anything that it was authentic, that we were authentic, and that I personally was speaking with, my true voice and not projecting something that, and I was being conscious of it, because like thousands, it went from, 10, 15, 20 to like thousands of people listening to the podcast. Yeah. And that's different. And like people finding me in the concourse at ISTE and like stopping to talk to me. And yes. And so I had to think about how I projected myself, and I decided super early on to be exactly like, if you talk to me like this, like us on the podcast, if you're with me on a Zoom call, I am exactly the same on a Zoom call, in a meeting. And sometimes that can be a little bit obnoxious because I'm a little bit obnoxious. But,
buddy.
But, I'm also the exact same way on Twitter. Sometimes I post about barbecuing chicken. And That was a Canadianism right there. I think that's why you smiled.
That was instead of grilling chicken, it's barbecue chicken. Yes, I got it.
The barbecue is a.
I've been around you a while now.
The way I am on Twitter is exactly the same. So I used to have like a professional Twitter and a personal Twitter, and I don't use my quote unquote personal Twitter anymore at all. I don't even have it on my Twitter, like on my phone, because I don't use it. My personal life and my professional life are very much similar now, to the point where, and the reality is if people don't like me, then they don't like me, and I got to be cool with that. And what about you? Yeah, I think you're also, you may not view it the same way, but I think you're fairly similar online and in person as well. What do you think?
That's what I was trying to think of as far as like, are you the same person?
I don't want to speak for you. I'm interested in what you think about yourself online.
I think that I may give off some more positive vibes than maybe what's all behind, the curtain, let's call it that way.
Sure.
But that's actually part of my personality though too. So if does it reflect kind of who I am, basically a lot of smiles, it looks very happy, doesn't really matter whether or not what's behind the curtain is actually feeling that same way. That may be what I do show a lot of. I do get ranty and preachy on some topics when they come up, and I go and I can't control myself, and I post something that maybe I will regret later. I try not to be aggressive, like a psycho, as far as like attacks personally on people. And if I ever done that to anybody out there, I apologize. But it's definitely, it's definitely possible. But I would just say, as far as comparing that life to my life, when I saw that thing, I'm like, I don't think I'm actually the same person, because deep inside, I'm not that same person. So there's this external layer, let's call it. It's my bubble protector. And that's usually the only spot that most everyone will ever, penetrate. So they never go beyond that thing. And I think that's okay, because there's a time and a place to be able to expose people to what's really happening deep down inside. And some, it's not for, some of my stuff is not for everybody's consumption, and that's how I feel like kind of what Twitter is it's a lot of consumption, like a lot of like, I'm taking some stuff in, and I've seen some very positive things come of people sharing, whatever, types of things where they were able to get support and empathy and whatever, like very positive vibes from people as far as in a thing in a, social media environment. But when I saw that, I was like, I don't think I'm the same. I don't want to call myself the same person, because there's some things that I definitely have held on to. And there's probably things I will just hold on to till I'm not going to tell people jack crap. And it's interesting, because if you ever heard me tell stories of when I was a kid, or growing up, and all of the evil things that I did, and kind of the situations that I was in as far as a kid and as a teenager, you'd be like, this dude is just like, will reveal anything. It's like, nah, I won't. Those are things that put a good context to maybe kind of where some of my mindsets are, and kind of why I feel about things the way I do right now. But yeah, do you agree kind of what I'm talking about? You know what as far as saying, I don't know if I'm actually that same person. So I don't know if I show the same thing, or if I have a bit of a facade there, that I put on. And I think I do. if I'm going to be honest, I think I put on I'm going to call it the happy face a lot on Twitter.
Sure.
And that's part of my thing, that I want to make sure that I try to help people out, support them, and people don't need sometimes my garbage, and that's doesn't feel like something that will help anybody. I don't know. That's how I'm feeling.
Yeah. No, it was a really interesting. I think it was easy for me to answer because I definitely spent some time literally thinking about the answer to that question, and making a decision. So I would encourage everyone to think about that and how you carry yourself online. I think it's an important thing to think about. When we come back, we're going to talk to GoGuardian's Tyler Shaddix. So stay with us.
GoGuardian helps thousands of K-12 school districts maximize the learning potential of over 8 million students. GoGuardian's products enable productive and safe digital learning by helping educators identify learning patterns, protect students from harmful and distracting content, and support mental health. To support schools during their distance learning transition, GoGuardian is offering free access to their entire product suite until the end of the school year. To learn more about GoGuardian and download their free resources about distance learning, visit their Distance Learning Resource Center at goguardian.com/distance learning.
All right, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. It goes without saying the world's an entirely different place than it was just 8 weeks ago. We're teaching and our students are learning in ways we've never done before, certainly not like it is now. Here to talk about that with us is GoGuardian's Chief Product Officer, Tyler Shaddix. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome.
So Tyler, to begin with, can you introduce yourself, your role, and maybe a bit about GoGuardian?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Tyler Shaddix. I'm the Chief Product Officer at GoGuardian. And at GoGuardian, our goal is to take advantage of all of the beautiful potential of the internet and digital learning experiences and allow teachers and educators to deliver that potential to their students in a safe and productive way. And so really what we focus on is how do you give educators that power to create and craft productive learning environments in a digital world?
So a little context to this question. My dad is a musician, full-time musician. And every time we get together, he yells at me for not playing guitar more. Because I used to play a lot. We've talked about that on the podcast a little bit, and so he gets mad at me when I didn't go into the family business, so to speak. I guess. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going now.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, you went to school for software development, and you were a software engineer and that sort of thing. Your mom is an educator, a grade 2 teacher, I think. Is that right?
That's right.
Nice. And so it must, I thought about this and I laughed because it must make your mom proud that you work for an education company. I don't have a real question about this. I just thought it was an interesting little side story to this whole thing that now you end up doing really cool stuff for GoGuardian.
Yeah, no, my mom is actually a user of GoGuardian. And so she has been texting me on a daily basis at this point on feature requests that she would like to see to the product. But I have to tell her consistently that she does not get special treatment just because she's my mom. But yeah, she is super, super proud. And honestly, my grandparents were both educators as well. So there's that added pressure of my grandparents kind of being in the loop there. And I had always been told growing up, education is the way you change the world. But you may not want to go into it because we're not treated the best. And so I kind of, always been passionate about going into education, but my parents actually were much more interested in me having a larger impact through something like software. And ironically, the way that, I'm kind of living my life now is to build software that impacts education in a positive way. So I kind of get to do both at the same time.
Yeah, it worked out perfectly. So we're obviously spending a lot of time these days, especially on the podcast, talking about COVID-19, how it's impacting education, teaching and learning from home. We've even started, calling it emergency education as opposed to things like distance learning. This isn't really like the way that we imagined anything like this would happen. And we wanted to have you on because we thought you might be able to provide an interesting perspective on how students and teachers are connecting, because your software is loaded on, so many students and teachers' computers, and so you have all of this data, I imagine, on what tools they're using and what type of behaviors have changed in, this kind of strange time. What can you give us some insight about stuff like that?
Yeah, that's really kind of one of the nice things about being in the place that GoGuardian is we basically are involved with making sure students are safe on the internet through our filtering products, and making sure that teachers can connect with students through our classroom management products. And so we have that firsthand kind of look, partnering with our schools and working through that school's data with them on what's been changing and what's been developing with these recent place we're in. And I'd say the first thing that's really notable is right around March 15th, we saw 60% of all students across the country just disappear when it comes to online footprint, just completely gone, as sharp a drop as you can imagine. And that makes sense. There was a lot of, just trying to get people home and get them safe without really equipping them with devices. And since then, we've seen about a 40% increase every 3 weeks as students coming back online, but it's been slow. And the last survey and observation we ran with our research team actually showed that still 40% of schools are in the unsure zone of what they're going to do in terms of, are they going to give students devices? Are they going to do packets? Are they just going to say this school year's over? So we still see a large portion of schools that are in that area of unknown. When it comes to the actual online experiences that we're seeing, we've seen massive growth in tools like Zoom or Loom, or basically anything that allows teachers and students to connect, especially through video. And so we've seen this move to these video-based tools, especially ones that kind of provide an asynchronous learning experience where students and educators can kind of work at their own availability and their own pace. Which has led to some really interesting developments in terms of the availability of teachers. So when we look at teachers using our product, it used to be very, very straightforward. Right around 7 a.m. of the local time, they would get online, and right around 2:30, they would go offline, and that was the day. Now we're seeing teachers get on around 6 a.m. and stay online till around 5, 6, some even until 11 p.m. local time that night. And so we're just seeing this availability of teachers where not only are they taking care of their own families and providing their own support to the people around them, but they're also being there literally all day for their students in this kind of remote environment. So that's been incredible to see as well.
I'm actually curious, Tyler, are you seeing, and I don't know if you have data that kind of shows this, but are you seeing people, students specifically, I guess I'm curious about, that aren't logging in at all, that have just completely, are you seeing a percentage that have just dropped off the radar completely?
Yeah, so we're only pull these kind of data at a high level aggregate view, so I can only give some rough guesses.
Yeah.
But we've only seen about 60% of our average daily population come back, and that's including all the schools that have joined us since moving to distance learning or this kind of emergency learning period. So all of our new schools combined with all of our old ones, and we still only have 60% of the averages we used to back in February or January. So there's still a large portion of the student population that has not come online since March.
And this is what we expected, right? I shouldn't say this is what we expected, but Glenn and I have talked about this, about the idea that there will be kids that just will be disappear. That you'll have classes where 1 or 2 kids in each class, and that, in an aggregate, that adds up to a large amount of students that will completely not engage in school this year for the rest of the year, because for lots of reasons, home life isn't ideal, this kind of stuff. It really hammers in that equity issue that we see with devices, and that home life is not equal for everybody all over the place, right?
Absolutely. We're hearing a lot of requests from schools that are asking for features that allow them to use hotspots in productive ways, because many students are being sent home that don't have internet connections at home. And so we're actually having to pull features out of our products and turn off certain features for certain students to make sure that the bandwidth limitations that kind of hotspots impose are not being taken up. So agreed, there's a bunch of personal situations that can lead to students not coming online, and also just technical situations in terms of, internet availability. And I come from, like I kind of may have mentioned, the rural school district out in the mountains of California. So internet connectivity was always something that we were glad to have, but not something we could rely on. And so, yeah, there's a variety of reasons that's happening. That said, I think something really interesting on the opposite side of this is the students who are coming online and are using devices. More than 50% of them that are online during weekdays are also online during weekends working on school stuff. And that's pretty interesting as well. So yes, many students have not come online, but over 50% of the ones that are online are actually working on weekends on school-related topics.
Interesting.
And it's I can't claim that it's the mass majority of time, but it's a portion of their time is school-related.
And Tyler, I was thinking that on that exact same note, have you noticed, I don't know if you guys break this down, but we notice for example, our LMS Schoology, we have some analytics that are showing specifically at the secondary level that our students are working at times when we thought that they would actually be more productive at, but we were just, you see all kinds of different studies and so on and so forth. But basically, their most productive times are between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. is the times when students are actually working on content, submitting assignments. And it's not like they're messing around. There's highly productive things going on during that crazy time period, which a lot of research has shown that might be the most productive time of, especially the kids that I work with, are in the high school type of age. So, have you seen those types of 100%. Things too? Are you guys
100%? Yeah,
okay,
it's truly incredible to see how once you allow all these different kind of choose your own learning style and learning cadence, how different students can be in terms of when they would like to engage and how they engage. We've even heard teachers telling us that some students, they don't get up until 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. every day. And so for them, they are so much more optimal once they get that full morning rest that they like to optimize for, and then work from, like you said, maybe late afternoon till night, or even later at night, just simply because they can kind of shift their schedule around to meet what they need.
So we've been applauding a number of edtech companies on the podcast here who have stepped up and responded with increased services or free services during this time. What has GoGuardian done to make it easier for schools and school districts to handle teaching and learning from home?
And it's been incredible to see the response across the edtech community and across the education community in general in making sure schools are supported. GoGuardian, what we decided to do is make all of our products free for the rest of the school year. And so that's our filtering product, our classroom management product. We have a suicide prevention product that looks for warning signs of internet behavior of students maybe who are looking to, commit self-harm. And so all of those products are now free to schools. And then we've completely shifted internally how our company is running. We've moved a bunch of people who are working on longer term projects to supporting onboarding new schools and helping them roll out devices to their students. We've also shifted all of our engineering teams to be working on distance learning features, which is a challenge because, quite honestly, every week we learn new things that people need because our teachers and our students are learning new things that they need every week. And so we've shifted the internal structure as well of the company to meet the new demands that we're hearing from our customers and our students. And then finally, the last thing we've done is we've been working across all of our schools to collect the best practices and resources from those that are willing to share. And we've collected those all into a single place on our website for schools to reference if they have any questions about how to roll out devices or how to think about digital use policies as they start kind of taking on this challenge.
Tyler, you said something about a product that detects suicide prevention. And a lot of us, it doesn't matter if you're elementary, but especially at the secondary level, have had experiences with students in our districts committing suicide. And it is something that continues to happen. And it would be interesting. I've never heard of an actual, way to be able to go ahead and at least have some form of detection where we could take some preventative steps. Students fall through cracks. They don't talk. They stop talking to people. Well, how does this actually work?
That's a great question. And quite honestly, we kind of got into it by accident originally. We were building kind of this artificial intelligence-based filter with the idea being that it would be more lenient to students. So if they weren't misbehaving on sites like Twitter or Reddit, that it would actually allow them to continue using it because there's so many great learning potential.
Really?
So we built an AI. Yeah,
I actually really like where you're going there. That's really interesting. Keep going. That's
actually
cool.
Our goal at GoGuardian with our filtering products is to open up as much of the internet as possible, but keep it as safe as necessary. Yeah. And so you need artificial intelligence for that. You can't say that an entire website or an entire series of website is bad or good. It's about the experience that you have inside of them. So we built this AI that basically sits with each student and in real time will kind of assess what they're working on and what the content is. And while we were working with a bunch of schools on this, they actually said, hey, we're having an escalation of these incidents. This was about 2 years ago, where we're having students who are looking to commit self-harm. Is there anything that you can do to maybe turn this AI to looking for those signs? And so we actually sat down with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention and the American Association of Suicidology, and we trained models with those experts to actually start looking for warning signs that are indicative of a student maybe looking to harm themselves in some way. And so what it does is when it detects this in the browsing behavior, and it's very subtle, it's able to catch very subtle, tiny things that a student may be kind of showing. It'll notify the counselor discreetly and reference the behavior that kind of triggered it and why the artificial intelligence model was concerned. The school can even have it send an email to the parents that just says, hey, you may want to check in with your student. And it's this really interesting balance we had to strike between protecting the student's privacy, but also making sure to get them the help they need. And so it's all done very carefully. We referenced, we worked with a bunch of experts to make sure that essentially we're only giving as much information that's necessary to help schools act, while at the same time trying to protect the student from, having any sort of negative effects of that information being shared.
There's so much nuance to this stuff. Like context is so important, and the human side. Like I like that you said that it then goes to people that actually like assess it for real, because a kid saying, I'm gonna kill you, like in a joking way. I mean, that's not necessarily the most appropriate thing to say, especially, but like, it's not a death threat, when 100%. It's a joke, right? But like there are some systems that are just brute force flagging stuff like that, and then like just the whole world falls apart on this kid. Gets in trouble and all of that stuff. And it's funny, we had that kid on, or we had that situation. It's come up a couple of times recently on the podcast. The student who hacked into like the school system, and where the school board just went crazy on this kid, like arrested him and all of this stuff. And these situations, and this is another one of those kind of things where context is super important. This is really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely agree. And that's kind of, we're still trying to figure that out, but that's really how we're approaching it. Let's be safe but thorough in terms of how to get these students help.
So where can people connect with you? And where do they go to learn more about GoGuardian?
Yeah, our website's always a good place to start. That's GoGuardian.com. You can also connect with me. I try to post all the insights that I'm learning on a weekly basis as we're kind of working with teachers and working with our schools. So that's on Twitter at Tyler Shaddix. It's just my full name. And yeah, always happy to chat more about this stuff. It's a really exciting time in terms of all the new things that we're learning together about what's working well and what isn't. But obviously, it's also a time that we need to kind of come together and help each other out.
Tyler Shaddix, thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to OnEducation. My name is Glen Irvin. My co-host is Mike Washburn. OnEducation is part of the On Podcast Media Network. You can listen to this show and many others by great educators like Monica Burns, Mike Matera, Tisha Richmond, and many more by visiting onpodcastmedia.com. Want to get in touch with us? Check out our website at oneducationpodcast.com. You can tweet us at oneducationpod. Mike is at Mr. Washburn on Twitter, and I can be found on Twitter at Spanish. You can find us on Facebook by visiting facebook.com/OnEducationPod. We're also on Instagram at OnEducationPod. Want to support OnEducation? Visit our Patreon site at patreon.com/OnEducation. There, you can get access to full videos of the podcast and so much more. If you're enjoying the show and think others would too, we would be thrilled if you shared it with them. Please leave us a rating or a review in Apple Podcasts or the Google Play Store. When you leave a rating, it gives our rankings a boost. It helps others discover the show. We want to thank our presenting sponsor, Participate, for supporting us. Check out participate.com to learn more about them. Thanks as always for listening, stay awesome, and see you soon.